Welcome back to Klepper's Corner, Today in History. Today, May 24th, looks less like a calendar date and more like a filing cabinet pushed down a flight of stairs. Empires manage grief with flowers. Kings start wars over paperwork. Scientists relocate Earth. And modern progress discovers that physics does not care about branding. Segment 1, and Rome invents flowers, fame, and family dysfunction. Ancient Rome gives us Germanicus, born in 15 BC, which is a reminder that the Roman Empire was basically succession with sandals and a much worse murder rate. Germanicus had noble blood, military talent, charisma, and the dangerous flaw of being more popular than the man above him. Augustus forced Tiberius to adopt him because nothing builds family stability like telling a brooding stepfather, "Good news, here is your replacement son," and everybody likes him better. Germanicus later won glory on the Rhine, recovered sacred eagle standards lost after Teutoburg Forest, and became the kind of commander soldiers wanted to follow into battle, which, in Rome, was less a compliment than a death sentence with applause. Tiberius responded by smiling publicly and moving the problem somewhere far away. Germanicus died in the East under suspicious circumstances, giving Rome one of its favorite genres. Beloved reformer mysteriously expires near a convenient rival. Meanwhile, Rome also celebrated the Rosalia, a festival of roses, where families decorated graves so the dead would not be forgotten. Wealthy Romans funded annual tomb flowers, while poor Romans joined burial societies to guarantee someone would visit their grave. Rome understood power and memory perfectly. The living got poisoned, the dead got roses, and somehow the roses were the healthier relationship. Segment 2, and medieval paperwork starts acting like a loaded crossbow. The Middle Ages arrive with a lesson modern governments still cherish. When a problem is manageable, escalate it until several generations inherit it. On May 24th, 1337, King Philip VI of France confiscated Aquitaine from King Edward III of England, lighting the fuse on the 100 Years' War, which, in classic medieval branding, lasted 116 years. The spark was Robert of Artois, a disgraced aristocrat who tried to grab an inheritance with forged documents and false testimony. Basically, medieval identity theft with better hats. Philip wanted him returned. Edward refused. So Philip seized Edward's lands, and Edward responded by claiming the entire French throne, because apparently the answer to hand over the fugitive was, "Actually, your country is mine now." Then, in 1431, Joan of Arc stood in Rouen, facing a tribunal that had already chosen the ending and was just shopping for a legal receipt. Threatened with burning, promised a safer church prison, and unable to read the document placed before her, she signed an abjuration. The promise was a lie. The record was inflated. The trap was ready. When she returned to soldiers' clothing for protection, her enemies called it relapse and burned her. And in 1487, England produced Lambert Simnel, a 10-year-old boy crowned in Dublin as a Yorkist heir, with a borrowed religious crown and a very ambitious support team. Henry VII crushed the rebellion, pardoned the child, and put him to work in the royal kitchens. Medieval legitimacy was flexible. A forged paper could start a war, a forced signature could justify a murder, and a fake king could end up turning the real king's dinner. Segment 3, and authority panics when reality refuses to stay still. By the 16th century, humanity begins asking dangerous questions, like, what if Earth is not the center of everything? And what if the king is absolutely not okay? On May 24th, 1543, Nicolaus Copernicus died just as his book on heliocentrism entered the world, politely suggesting that Earth moved around the sun. It was a scientific revolution delivered in the softest possible voice, like someone interrupting 1,000 years of cosmic self-importance with, "Quick note, we may not be the main character." Copernicus knew the idea could upset everyone emotionally invested in the universe being arranged like a royal seating chart. So he delayed, circulated ideas privately, and dedicated the finished book to Pope Paul III. A bold strategy. Hand the church a universe-upending manuscript with a nice cover letter. Meanwhile, on May 24th, 1567, Sweden gave us King Eric XIV and the Sture murders. A reminder that monarchy is risky when the job includes absolute power and no mandatory mental health screening. Eric, consumed by paranoia, stormed into Uppsala Castle's dungeons and helped murder imprisoned aristocrats he believed were plotting against him. Then he fled into the woods for days, disguised as a peasant, while the palace tried to pretend everything was normal, which is hard when your national crisis has footprints and a royal dagger. Copernicus moved Earth from the center of the universe. Eric tried to keep himself at the center of politics by eliminating anyone orbiting too close. One expanded human understanding. The other proved fragile authority may answer reality with footnotes or knives. Segment 4, and the 19th century connects the world, then immediately overbooks it. The 19th century loved progress so much it kept building monuments before asking whether anyone had inspected the floor, the bridge, or the boat. Queen Victoria was born on May 24, 1819, an unlikely royal baby who became the monarch whose name got stamped onto an entire era, like Britain had invented a century and demanded naming rights. Her birthday became Victoria Day in Canada, though the holiday's history includes overcrowded transit disasters like the calendar had a grudge. In 1830, Sarah Josepha Hale published Mary Had a Little Lamb, a nursery rhyme that later became immortal when Thomas Edison used it to test the phonograph. One of the first recorded human phrases was not a declaration of democracy or a grand philosophical truth, but a sheep attendance problem, which may be the most accurate beginning possible for mass media. Then, on May 24, 1844, Samuel Morse sent What Hath God Wrought from Washington to Baltimore, introducing instant electronic communication and giving humanity the ability to misunderstand each other at unprecedented speed. Before the telegraph, bad news traveled by horse. After the telegraph, it arrived fast enough to ruin breakfast. And in 1883, the Brooklyn Bridge opened after years of danger, death, and engineering genius, with Emily Warren Roebling guiding the project after her husband was incapacitated. She crossed first carrying a rooster as a symbol of victory, because New York infrastructure has always required math, stubbornness, and one loud bird. The century connected cities, voices, markets, and memories. But every triumph came with a warning label. The world is smaller now, and so are your margins for error. Segment 5, and modern ambition hits the wall, the ocean, and the wine list. The 20th century and beyond bring a familiar pattern. Humans build something brilliant, then discover the universe has a complaint department. On May 24, 1941, HMS Hood confronted the German battleship Bismarck in the Denmark Strait and was destroyed in minutes after a shell detonated its magazine. The Hood had been a symbol of British naval power, the kind of ship empires point at when they want the public to feel calm. And then it vanished so fast, confidence itself seemed to take on water. Only 3 men survived from more than 1,400. But Bismarck's victory was wounded too. A fuel leak helped turn the hunter into prey, and within days, Britain hunted it down. In 1962, Scott Carpenter orbited Earth in Aurora 7, solved John Glenn's mysterious fireflies as ice crystals, and then splashed down 250 miles off target, turning a space mission into the world's most expensive "I am not where the GPS said I'd be." In 1970, Soviet engineers began drilling the Kola super deep borehole to win the race downward, reached astonishing depths, and got stopped by heat, money, and rock behaving like warm taffy. In 1976, the judgment of Paris wine tasting humiliated French wine elites when California bottles won blind, proving even terroir has to survive peer review. And in 2001, the Jerusalem Wedding Hall disaster showed the darkest version of ignored engineering, when a dance floor collapsed because unsafe construction and removed supports met human celebration. From battleships to spacecraft, boreholes to wine glasses, May 24th keeps whispering the same truth. Ambition is impressive, but physics does not care about your brochure. In conclusion, May 24th gives us people trying to manage the same basic problem. Reality refuses to respect branding. Rome could wrap death in roses, but not stop family ambition from curdling into poison. Kings could dress greed in legal language, but still bleed generations dry. Scientists could move Earth from the center of the universe, while rulers proved they could not survive being moved from the center of attention. The modern world wired itself together, crossed rivers, reached space, drilled downward, and judged wine without labels, only to discover every miracle still depends on structure, humility, and someone willing to say, maybe we should check the supports.